start to work on the budget process that we're all in alignment. So we'll start with the strategic plan. And as I mentioned, after 2 full years, our strategic plan continues to serve as that guiding framework for Flagler County government. It really enables us to define a clear vision for the future and outline those actionable steps to achieve it. So as you know, the purpose of creating the strategic plan was to establish a unified vision. It was a top to bottom, bottom to top approach. It aligned not only the elected officials, the board, but as well as staff and the community around those shared goals and priorities that really reflect the value and needs of our residents countywide. It also helps guide our decision-making by providing that roadmap. One of the things that we had incorporated in your agenda items over the last 2 years was that alignment or that nexus between items that come in front of the board and how they tie into the strategic plan. Really just making it more of a proactive decision and the use of public resources. It also helps to promote transparency and accountability, also enhancing that long-term sustainability. And then for Flagler, the approach that we had taken is really that fostering of collaboration, working with our community partners and municipalities, state agencies. So enough on that, but we'll move forward a little bit here. This is a look at the vision and mission statements, which are really the cornerstone of our strategic plan, providing a clear sense of direction and purpose for Flagler County as an organization. The vision statement really reflects our aspirations for the future. It serves as a unifying goal that inspires the community and guides long-term decision-making. What we had chosen was to make Flagler County a vibrant, prosperous community with a focus on exceptional quality of life. And then looking at the mission statement, it really articulates our core purpose and responsibilities. It clarifies why we exist, what we do, and how we serve the needs of our residents, businesses, and stakeholders. And so our mission statement is to provide high-quality services through a responsive workforce committed to excellence, integrity, in collaboration with the cities, and to act as a fiscally responsible steward. And so the goals, the vision and mission statements were set by the Board of County Commission, naturally with input from the community. So when we look at our strategic planning process, we developed a structure to support our core values. So our culture is really about putting Flagler first. So the F is for fiscal accountability. The I is for innovative solutions, the R for responsible growth, S for superior service, and then T for transparent government. And so our value commitment here is that we leverage our partnerships, embrace efficiency and innovation, requires performance for the benefit of all of our taxpayers. We actively engage with our citizens, not only as taxpayers, but as contributors for the greater good of our community. We provide meaningful opportunities for our residents to offer their knowledge and expertise in making important decisions that will shape our community for the future and generations to come. So as you know, when we created the strategic plan, these are the 4 pillars or focus areas of the strategic plan. Now that we've completed our second full year, we're going to provide you with an update of our accomplishments as of the close of fiscal year 24. Prior to this meeting, you should have received maybe a PDF version of the strategic plan. I think today we were able to share with you, although it is a draft, we have, you should all have a book in front of you. And part of this I'll go over, and then a section of this we'll have Jorge go over with you. But looking at fiscal year 25, here's a look at the following number of goals and objectives and measures that we have by strategic focus area. This does not include ones that we've completed through '24. So in looking at just moving forward for fiscal year '25, under effective government, we've got a total of 4 goals, 6 objectives, and 29 measures. Economic vitality has 4 goals, 4 objectives, and 28 measures. Growth and infrastructure, 3 goals, 5 objectives, and 43 measures. And then under public health and safety, we have 4 goals, 13 objectives, and 23 measures. So just to touch briefly on each one of these pillars, the first one we'll talk about is going to be the effective government. If you're following along with the copy provided, I believe it starts on page 8, is where you'll find effective government, and it should be carried through page 12. But in looking at effective government, our goals are to really focus on maintaining that financial stability. It's looking at building and maintaining relationships to support effective, efficient government, providing an excellent customer experience, and then creating a culture of performance excellence. And then switching over to economic vitality, that begins on page 13 and will run through page 16. And the goals for economic vitality are to diversify and enhance the tax base to improve the local economy, develop competitive advantages for new and existing businesses, promote and market Flagler County as a desirable place to live, work, and visit, and then explore affordable workforce and obtainable housing options. Growth and infrastructure begins on page 17 and it runs through page 21. The goals under growth and infrastructure are to provide quality fundamental infrastructure and assets, as well as protect and manage our natural resources, and then to preserve and enhance cultural, recreational, and leisure activities. And then looking at public health and safety, that should start on page 22 and continue through page 26. The goals of public health and safety are to increase resident awareness of available services of Health and Human Services Department, as well as operating a risk reduction program in fire rescue, improve public safety response and service delivery capabilities, and then to expand behavioral health and substance abuse programs. So over the last year, we've made some great strides in completing several objectives in support of our focus areas. We'll begin to cover those that we've completed in 2024, and those you'll see marked in green. And then anything that we as staff have added as items that we feel should be included are going to be displayed in red. And those are new ones in 2025. So we'll go over these by each one of the focus areas. So in looking at effective government for 2024, we've got a host of things that we've completed. I'm not going to read through each one of these, but just highlight a couple of them. We've been able to dedicate a lot to the financial side of making sure that we have at least 5% of operating in our reserves for contingencies, as well as that 3/12 or 3 months of operating expenses that we have set aside for reserve for future use. It did result in us exceeding our AA bond rating. We actually last year were upgraded to an AA+, which is a huge accomplishment for Flagler County. It's the best bond rating that they've seen. And then looking at 2025, some of the new objectives that staff had thought were important to add were to implement procedural and regulatory measures to protect public health, safety, and welfare. We've added that to fiscal year 25 with a target of the fourth quarter. And then conducting internal service surveys is something that we are also looking to implement in 2025, with those results coming back in the third quarter. And then we've already begun with the conducting of an airport customer service survey. which is something that we'll do annually. A lot of these surveys, we'll end up doing them annually. That one's already out. It should be wrapping up or finalized in the first quarter. So that's something that we'll be able to report back to you on after the end of the month. And then looking at economic vitality, again, I'm not going to read through all of them, but some of the high things to look at here is completing of the comprehensive plan. I know that that was presented, I think it was last week, to the planning board, and it's scheduled to come back in front of you all at an upcoming meeting. And then another key takeaway is, we're continuing to kiss frogs and looking for the economic development prospects. But we're glad that the board was able to adopt several new incentives to really provide a competitive edge over some of the other communities where incentives are provided. And looking at 2025, some of the new objectives that we've included was to create a certified shared use kitchen to support program to help aspiring food entrepreneurs. That's part of that cottage food law. It was a request of something that came out of the Ag Extension in support of ag-related businesses. Also looking to construct a new aviation airport terminal with roadside improvements. I believe that's on your agenda tonight to take a look at. And then we also have construction of a corporate hangar, which is another project which would be adjacent to the new terminal. And then one of the things that we should be starting, I think it should be probably June or July of this year, will be the kickoff of a airport master plan. We anticipate that to take probably about a year and a half. So that's something new that we've added there for economic vitality. And then moving over to growth and infrastructure, we were successful in completing that broadband access throughout the rural area of Flagler County. We also completed the stormwater master plan study. We were able to complete Reach 1 of the Beach Nourishment Project, which is the Army Corps section, along with the 2 non-federal tapers. And then we were able to work with our municipal partner, City of Palm Coast, to develop a joint park and recreation master plan. Some of the new things that we've got here under growth and infrastructure, little change in the way we had displayed them previously. We kind of now put them into buckets or groupings. So the first one is going to be the road and bridge program, and these are some new things that we're going to be working on this year. Largely, these things tie to the plan that we submit to FDOT as kind of like our 5-year plan. Some of these are for design projects. Some of them are to perform construction. I'm not going to read through all of them, but these largely are things that the board has already approved as part of our FDOT plan. And then moving forward, as I said before, we had those as road projects. We've also broken out the sidewalk and trail program, looking at moving forward with the Bulow Creek Headwaters Regional Park, as well as design of an additional trailhead for Graham Swamp and Lehigh Trail, and then beginning of a design phase for the Old Kings Road Trail. And then we broke out the projects that are more for vertical capital improvement, which is largely the construction of fire stations. We've got 2 of those on there, as well as the Nexus Center, that partnership that we share with SMA Healthcare for their integrated stabilization unit will be underway. And then we also had added the Eco Discovery and the multi-purpose emergency shelter Cattleman's Hall project to the list for vertical. Looking at the stormwater master plan, since the plan and study was performed, completed last year, we had taken some of the ARPA funding that we had left to look at a couple projects. The one that we're going to call out here is for the design phase of the Malacompra Canal Restoration Resiliency, which will be done over phases. And then also we've added the beach management plan. We were able to do phase 1, which was that Army Corps section, but we're gearing up to start Reach 2, which will take us from North 7th Street, just north of Varn Park, and then looking at the design for Reach 3. And then looking at public health and safety, the projects that we've been able to complete in 2024. Just a couple highlights. We were able to purchase a new helicopter to replace Fireflight last year. We were able to achieve full accreditation of our emergency management team through their accreditation program. And then we were able to pursue that public-private partnership with SMA to expand services in Flagler. So you may recall a couple years ago, we had the Flagler Access Center, which is located on the corner of US 1, State Road 100, next to the old historic courthouse. And then now we're working on developing a central intake facility, men's stabilization unit out on Justice Lane. And then looking at 2025, new objective that would like to bring forward was to establish an interlocal agreement with the City of Palm Coast. And it pertains to the use of opioid settlement funds, and that would be to expand the CORE program. CORE stands for the Coordinated Opioid Recovery program that we are a part of. It kicked off a few years ago into the state of Florida, initially under the Department of Health. It's transitioned over to DCF, Division of Children and Families. It is something that Flagler Cares works with us to implement, and this is through our community paramedicine program. The state did have a shortfall in their funding, so we came up with an opportunity here to work with the City of Palm Coast because the opioid settlement funds are actually limited on their use and how they can be spent. This provides a perfect opportunity to work with the City of Palm Coast and cover that cost where the state had a shortfall. So that's something that currently we're working on and hope to have to the board probably second quarter of 25, so probably sometime after the beginning of the year. And then this is just a screenshot to really talk about performance management. It is a vital process for ensuring effectiveness, accountability, and continuous improvement of our organization. It establishes a framework for setting clear goals, measuring progress, and aligning our resources with priorities to achieve optimal results. And so that's really the focus of what this does with having a strategic plan and taking a look at this. So at this point, I'd probably open it up to talk about any updates to the strategic plan because it is a critical step in ensuring that our budget development process aligns with the priorities and the evolving needs of our organization and the community. By updating and refreshing that strategic plan, it continues to set clear priorities where we can focus our resources on the initiatives that will deliver the greatest impact. It also ensures fiscal responsibility by updating the plan, providing that framework for allocation of funds. It avoids us wasting time and addresses some of the emerging challenges and opportunities that we face. It also enhances accountability, providing a clear connection between strategy and budget, demonstrating transparency and strength and trust within our stakeholders. And then by doing so, we're also able to adapt to some of those changing conditions. As you know, our community's needs evolve over time. And so by providing annual update, it allows us to be more proactive and prepared for the future. So I wanted to open up this time for a discussion of any items or changes that the board feels that they would like to incorporate into the strategic plan. The goal is that we would end up bringing back this item sometime in January for your consideration and adoption. So I'll hand it over to Jorge. I think you all have a copy. If there's anything in particular that you would like to talk about or add, or if there's something that maybe you don't feel something that we've mentioned that should be added, if we could kind of get that input so then we could come back with a final document for you in January.
All right, we'll open it up for discussion. Commissioner Hanson.
Yeah, just a quick question, Heidi. The achievement of the 3/12 operating expenditure and the ending fund balance, do you view that as as we've achieved it, but it's ongoing? Is that why it's marked yellow in the?
It's going to be something that's going to be ongoing.
We've achieved it, right?
We've-
At this exact
We're
moment,
close,
but
we're
it's an
close.
ongoing.
It's going to be an ongoing process every year as we develop the budget, and as we spend money or tap into those reserves, it's incumbent that we replenish and refill,
Right.
as well as add to it so that we can maintain that 5% and that 3/12 number.
So that's not something that will ever get a green arrow up. It's just going to be always something we're working on.
You might see it be green maybe at the beginning of a fiscal year if we haven't spent any money, but it's going to be something. And right now, we're more than 2/12. 2/12 was the original target, and we're aiming for the 3/12. So we're not quite yet to the 3/12, but we're really close.
Okay.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'll just add some of the discussion points you've already mentioned is, the benefit of us being able to review this is the accountability of and following the issues through to completion, watching that progress. And as we align agenda items with the strategic plan, each of the agenda items has a connection to the strategic plan as we identify which of the goals objectives it's fitting. I can't think of anything new. There's a lot of red new letters on it, a lot of projects that have popped up.
If I could add to that, I really appreciate the new ads. I think the specificity of those into the strategic plan it's well done. We need that. We need to see that. Thanks.
Well, thank you, and I probably should have started with this. This isn't something that I do by myself. Holly in administration works really close with the departments. Each one of the departments was tasked with coming up with their own strategic plan, and their individual department strategic plan would support the county's overall. So each one of the departments has created a strategic plan. They're fine-tuning what they have goals, but they're fine-tuning what some of those measurable objectives are going to be. The hope is that with Holly working with the departments a little bit closer, that each one of the departments will have their own strategic plan facing on their department page within our organization. Not everything that they work on necessarily will be reflected in the county's overall strategic plan, but everything that they do supports it in one form or fashion. So we're working on that component now. They have identified, high-level items. They're kind of drilling down now. So after the first of the year, we hope to have that piece. And then this is something that Jorge manages with input from the department and provides that update. He's got this forward-facing on our transparency dashboard just to be able to give an idea of where we're at, not just at year end, but the transparency dashboard gives it as it's being reported each quarter. We're updating that and providing, direction on where we're at.
Thank you.
Not a comment other than maybe somewhere having a summary of what the different colors mean.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe you're laughing, maybe on the first page or second page somewhere. What's the red, what's the blue, what's the yellow, just what it means.
Yeah, we just, Chair Dance just texted me this before the meeting to go over the colors because we kind of made an assumption here, but we'll update it. I'll just kind of go over real quick on the text that I sent Chair Dance about it. But basically, green is on target or completed for the ones that will fall off next. So those are green. Yellow is some progress made. blue is a new initiative or hasn't started yet, and the red is has not met target as stated or is falling behind. As you can see, there's not a lot of red. Last year we had some, and this year the departments have been able to correct those and move them forward. We do have a lot of blue because there's things that will be taking place in the next years. So they're here in the strategic plan, so we can actually look and see what else we need to make sure that these are accomplished as they come up. But it's a good question, and we'll add it to the document. Thank you.
Yeah, a good point from Commissioner Carney, only because as a public document,
Right.
people that aren't listening and just are picking it up to read, that explanation would be helpful.
Right.
Anything, Commissioner Richardson?
I just like to say I'm glad to see that we've done an interlocal agreement with Palm Coast for the opioid CORE program. I think that's great. There's probably needs to be the whole county, in my opinion, if we could, to reach out to every municipality, because it's a serious problem and it's doesn't lead to anything good until we can make it better.
I probably should mention that the opioid settlement funds that we acquire, because the cities or towns are so small, we actually receive their money.
Okay.
So we're able to apply their money as we see fit. The only other municipality that gets the money direct is the city of Palm Coast because of their size. That's why it's important that we come together rather than water down, I guess, the resources to apply it to one specific program. So
Wonderful. Thank you. I'm glad for that information.
Chair? So just looking through this briefly, I'm on the Affordable Housing AHAC Committee. I did listen into a Live Local webinar this past week, and I'll probably use in committee, I guess by means of committee work, probably, I'm not so sure that we meet or understand the Live Local impact on Flagler County, our own personal or governmental property. There are some policies that I either haven't seen or that we need to be in compliance with the state. So I'll work through committee if that's all right to see if something's missing on Live Local. But if we can somehow work in that we're working on Live Local, or we have an awareness, or we have met some of the requirements, I think the state is going to be looking at every municipality and hoping to have some type of a plan on Live Local. I know Palm Coast is working diligently on a Live Local plan. I just haven't seen it yet on our side.
I know in my discussions with Mr. Moylan that is a priority within their office. I know they have looked at what Palm Coast has done and know that we're in need of compiling an ordinance on Live Local and doing those gaps. It's one of the recommendations tonight as well, is completing that this year. So whether we add it, I mean, it could be an added, especially that one, the ordinance could be an added item in the, as that would be under the economic vitality, I guess, component. But as we go through tonight, the different recommendations from AHAC, some of those may translate to the strategic plan.
It is, yeah. Yeah, we'll go ahead and take note of that and add an item in here. And this is a living document as you go through this process with the committee. If there's a specific one you want to add, please let us know. We'll bring it back to the board for update and approval. Any other items that you want to?
I'm good. Anything else?
Nope.
All right.
Okay.
I'll
One thing
open it up for
before, I just
public
wanted
comment.
to say, sorry,
Go ahead.
Chair. Wanted to say, Julie Murphy is the person behind the scenes updating this for me when I work with her, so I just want to give her a shout out out to Julie and thank her for all the work to getting this and actually printing these for us for this meeting.
Yep, very good. Go, Julie. Good job. At this time, I'll open it up for this item for public comment if anybody wishes to address the commission on the strategic plan. All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment and we'll move to the second item. Capital Improvement Plan.
So as we switch over to talk about the capital improvement program for Flagler County in 2025, we'll cover what's already been approved by the board as part of the budget process, and there's certainly opportunity to change things around for the future years. But when we look at the capital improvement plan, it's a critical tool, I think, for sustainable community development and for effective governance. It allows us to strategically prioritize and allocate resources for long-term infrastructure and facility investments. So in essence, it's really not just a tool for planning about building infrastructure, it's also about building in resiliency, improving quality of life, and positioning our community for sustained economic growth and prosperity. So we'll, if I can switch it. There we go. So it might be kind of hard to see, but this is what was approved as part of the budget for fiscal year 25 through 29. When we develop this as part of the budget every year, the first column, in this case, fiscal year 25, is what got funded. These are placeholders in years 26, 27, 28, and 29. So that's all subject to change depending on the pleasure of the board. At the time we bring this forward, this is based on what the board has already adopted. But again, there is room in here. You'll notice that a lot of the items on the first, I think it's the first couple pages that we're going to show you, are really related to capital preservation projects, maintenance, things that you would normally see. Because the county for years had deferred a lot of the maintenance, we're trying to play catch up. So a lot of the things that you see here are just that, where it might be flooring, it might be paint, it might be AC units, might be roofs. So that's just kind of a look at what we have in fiscal year 25. Again, this is part of the adopted budget that we're currently working off of. And then some things you'll see carry over from year to year, such as AC replacements, where we anticipate having several that need to be replaced throughout the year, as well as the ADA projects for transition plan, which is making sure that all of our facilities and sidewalk connections and things like that are meeting ADA requirements. It's not that there's a specific project in mind, but as those get identified through that plan. So this is really just a look at what the board's already approved. Again, could be subject to change. If you're good with it, I can move on, or if there's discussion about this.
26, carpeting the first floor of this building. Is that just this room?
26 on mine is the Justice Center flooring, fourth floor.
I got it at GSB carpet flooring, first floor, item 22.
22. That would be here, and then it could be any additional carpeting needs on the tax collector's office.
Yeah, she
area.
just did a complete remodel, so mark that off the list.
Yeah, we could probably
put new flooring in.
modify it. Yeah. Sometimes she might be the only constitutional that ends up doing that, but we can certainly
Right.
update that one, number 22.
I also have a question on the GSB on the second floor, number 5. That's this.
So on the second floor, you have the common area, and then you have the property appraiser's office on the second floor. And I failed to mention on the first floor, on the previous one, it also includes growth management area, building department, code enforcement on the first floor. But on the second floor, you have a section of IT, and then you have common area, and then the property appraiser.
So is the school board doing their side separately than us?
When the building was originally constructed, the school board contributed 44, I think it's 44.2%. So not just in the original construction, but when we have maintenance costs, we split those common maintenance costs that way, the 44.2%. Any capital improvements that they make, if it's flooring or new glass enclosures, they pay for 100% on their
Okay.
own.
So this is our responsibility, basically?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, thank you.
2 questions. Is the carpet the right flooring product to use? Has anyone studied looking at a different product than carpet and seeing if we get a longer return on our investment by using a different product?
I don't know if we've gone to that length. I think what we were looking at switching to is probably consistent with what the schools use. I know when we recently did carpet replacement, we were going back with a similar product. Typically like the carpet squares, if you have a stain or you have a spot, rather than having to replace the whole run of carpeting, it's just popping out an individual
tile.
square, like a tile. So that's kind of the approach that we've taken. I think it might even be the same contract that we piggyback off of with the school board.
It's become a popular item for all commercial properties lately.
Seems to be.
Those squares seem to be the resilient ones. Pop them out and make it look like it's new without replacing the whole carpet.
I think in an office setting too, it's the acoustics as well. Yeah.
Under item 13, Princess Place, pool restoration and roof covering and fence, I didn't think that made it to the budget. I thought that was,
No, you're right. That was last year's discussion. So it was, if I remember, it was bumped to this fiscal year. But it's a great discussion that to have, especially if you weren't sitting in last year's budget and need an update or a refresher on what that entails, because it's definitely a unique item.
Historic.
I'd have to go back and listen to that meeting. I know that we did talk about it, but it wasn't moved. What you're looking at is actually what the board approved as part of the adopted budget. There was a discussion about that, though, about, I think conversation had something to do with at the time that we bring it forward, that we bring it back for discussion with the board, but there is funding
Gotcha.
allocated for
So
that.
I think that was it. Just the details
The
of the
details.
construction technique and the materials was part of that discussion. Okay. It's
Correct.
starting to come to me.
all right. That's all I have.
Anything else on this page? This is page 1. We've got, I think, 5. Okay, so then this is, again, continuing with the capital preservation, and this is where you'll start to see it hitting in the out years. And again, some of these have been from years of deferred maintenance. I think, just looking at number 49, which is the airport fire station painting in fiscal year 29, that may go away as that facility ends up being replaced by a different station in Palm Coast. We may or may not have a need for that station there.
Let's hope we don't have to do 30 either.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So these are they kind of serve as like a placeholder on here. And then as it gets closer to identifying which ones serve as a priority, these numbers may change, but this is what we have right now. You'll see kind of on average, we try to be somewhere around the 2 million when you're looking at the overall, how much is coming out of the general fund. This is just the preservation, but there is IT and some other related things that hit the general fund that you'll see.
And question, looking at 2027, is there a reason for the lower amounts for that year?
You may end up seeing it, you'll see another page coming up where maybe it's not a capital preservation, it might be an IT
Okay.
in total. So this is just the capital preservation. But if there's no questions, I could probably move forward to the next one.
Can I just ask real quick? Number 21, Social Service David Siegel Center, interior, exterior painting. Is this where our senior daycare is?
Yes, on Belterre.
It needs a total new upgrade. I mean, it's not just about paint, I don't think. Have you been in it lately?
To last year I was.
Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to see a whole lot more effort, especially if that building's staying when social services moves over here. Not here in this building, but you know what I mean. It's almost dreary. It
It's
needs,
depressing.
yeah. It's,
And those are the people that need to see
yeah, it's
Less
very
depression.
old, very
dated,
cut up, very dated. And if
uncomfortable.
that's the long-term plan to keep that service, I'd like to see a little more money put in there to give it a facelift. Interior,
Where the residents are living, it's like the offices are updated, but the residents are not. It felt that way. We did a tour, Kim was at that tour with us, with me at the same time, and when I walked in there, I was shocked. I don't think it's up to the standards of our county. I'm not worried about the carpet as much as the residents that are living there. Daycare,
Daycare.
that are using the facility. Let me change that. It's drab, it's dated, it's not a happy place. They need some positive uplift, definitely.
We can certainly take a look at refreshing or providing a facelift on that facility.
I would
So-
at least take a look and see what the numbers look like for,
Yeah.
and come back.
Yeah, we'll look at it through the preparation of the capital plan and bring it back as a discussion item.
Even the entryways were just not kept up. It just looked like it was a falling apart facility thing. It was really disappointing.
Yeah, I don't know the age of the facility. I know that it has had an addition at one point, I think, but that addition, which was, I think, like a screen room or a room on the back, I think it was done even as an addition. It was probably maybe 18 years ago. So,
Just the entryway
look.
was drab. Everything about it was drab.
yeah,
Really,
we'll
really.
certainly take a look at it.
Okay, thank you.
All right, now we'll look at the new construction projects. I think your question, was it in fiscal year '27 where it was low on the previous slide?
Right.
So here's where you may see some of the makeup here of the costs that come out of the general fund when we try to work towards like a $2 million
Right.
a year. So some of these are covered under grants. We have some legislative projects in '25, and then we typically, unless we have the money, it, is not going to really show up in some of these out years. We do have a sheet that has projects coming up. I think it might be after this one where we're waiting on grant agreements, but it did make it to a list. And some of these, as we move forward, like in the top where you have number 5, expansion of the 911 dispatch center located at the EOC. This right now is earmarked in general fund, but there should be an opportunity to use some law enforcement impact fees to be able to share some of that cost there. So this is subject to change when you're looking at the out years. It's just really serving as a placeholder.
Who's doing the Malacomper disc golf? What company do we have?
I don't know that we have an actual company. This was added as part of fiscal year '25. That area that we have up and around the Hammock Community Center. I don't know that this has actually moved forward, but we would end up putting something out to bid. So I don't think that
I
they've
know, I
picked
know it's a
anybody.
specialty. They looked at it in Flagler Beach for a while.
I think the thing that changed this was the addition of a Palm Coast adding a disc golf course on the corner of Palm Coast Parkway and White Mill as a part of their park. So the developer was adding and making those improvements. So at least that added something that wasn't, previously existing. But I know, and Mr. Hanson probably heard some rumblings up there last year about this not getting vetted with the residents properly, so it would have to go through some meetings at least if it's still going to be looked at. I mean, there is a cottage group of residents that that have been looking for a place. I don't know if the Palm Coast place will satisfy the needs or if we provide another alternate location.
Yeah, I didn't get, a lot of pushback. I got a lot of, whose idea was this? That kind of question. But I showed them that it actually came out of the Parks and Rec recommendations. That's where it came from.
Right.
But
I'm just not so sure it's as popular as they thought it was going to be. But we'll learn from Palm Coast, I guess.
Daytona Beach has a disc place area there on the corner on a major road.
Oh, wow.
But I've only seen 2 times, but I've driven by and seen anybody there. So it's almost a passive park in my opinion, but I'm sure there's people out there who want to play.
The one down on Nova?
Yes.
Yeah.
I also have a question. Civic Arena, is that by where the Cattleman's Hall is that the fairgrounds?
Out at the fairgrounds, correct?
It is the fairgrounds. I didn't know they had a sound system there.
They have a sound system like for rodeos and things like that,
Yeah.
Cracker Day.
Okay, thank you.
And a bad
So-
sound system can be very distracting.
I thought it was portable speakers. Is that built into that building there?
They have a announcer's booth.
Right.
Oh, the booth? Okay.
On priority 2, other funds, court, jail, security, control, retrofit, any chance of a fund on that? Oh, you're going to fund it with a half cent? Okay,
And that one's already in the 25 budget.
it's a go.
It already is being done or worked on right now. It had to do with the retrofit of existing security controls in the courthouse. They actually have kind of like a small, I'd call it like a mini jail for people that are having to appear in court that need to be detained downstairs. That facility, I believe, is about, trying to remember what year that one was built, but it's probably 17, 18 years. It needed some retrofit to be compatible to the same system that you just upgraded at the jail. So that's what that is. Any other questions on this one? We good? Okay. I didn't want to change it if somebody was looking at it. So then we'll move forward. These are the ones that I had mentioned that we do have projects identified. However, we are waiting for grant awards. So they sit on this list until the funding is available through those grant opportunities. A lot of them have to do with FDOT, part of that 5-year work plan that we submit. So we have some of the years identified of when we believe these will come to fruition. But even then, sometimes if we have a cost overrun on one project, we may have to delay one of these unless we can fund that gap in shortfall of funding.
Question on the runway extension, November 29 by 1,000 feet. Is that gone through all the way up to approval and just waiting for funding, or has that been discussed and is a question mark?
It's, so the runway is 11/29, like the identifier, rather than November of
Oh, I'm sorry.
2029.
Okay.
The runway extension is part of the existing airport master plan. So when we're due for an update with the master plan at the airport, but this item is already on the original one, the one from, I think, I don't know if it was 15 years ago or if it was 2015, whenever the last update was to the airport master plan. This is part of that. So it's on the list with FDOT to have that as part of the next 5 years. So based on the location on the list, I would say it's probably towards the bottom because it's number 8 of the projects. But that is part of what had been approved by prior board to be submitted. But there is, an opportunity to, we're updating, like I said, I think funding's available July 1. So we'll start working on an update to the airport master plan.
I have a question about number 8 on the transportation part. As far as Armand Beach Drive, I was under the impression that was just freshly resurfaced about a year or two ago. I may be wrong. That it was totally surfaced, no?
I don't know if this one is actually like Armand is a street name within the Armand Beach subdivision. This may be other side streets within that community that are in need
Okay.
of paving. We are responsible for paving from gutter to gutter within that community. So
So those little cul-de-sacs along the side of Armand is what we're talking about here?
could be, yeah. They've got it listed as various roadways on that item. I'd have to pull the actual detail to
I'm
see which
curious because I'm
streets.
very
but-
familiar with that street. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? We're good, okay. And then this is just a look at the funding summary of fiscal year '25. Again, this has already been approved by the board, but it really just breaks down how much is coming from each one of these funding sources, whether it's general revenue, vessel registration, grants, impact fees, beachfront parks, or half-cent sales tax. So it just really breaks down what we're looking at here. And that's only for fiscal year '25, which is already budgeted. So it's a summary of the previous screens, just showing you where the money's coming from. So we good to move forward?
Yep.
Okay. All right, so then this is a look at the unfunded projects that we have. And this is, just a list of new construction items that we believe at some point are going to need to be added in. It's just that funding has not been identified. Looking at that list, though, I do see number 3 on here is probably a duplicate to the, it might have been called by something different on the previous screen, but that's the expansion of the 911 dispatch center at the EOC. But we've got a lot of fire stations that are in need of replacement. This is in addition to the 2 that we currently have underway. Another expensive item would be the replacement of the chillers over at the energy plant that service this building as well as the Justice Center. We've got a need for some training facilities, other public safety, co-location with the sheriff's office. There's some site improvements that are needed at the Palm Coast Library related to driveway and stormwater. There is also added to the list the supervisor of elections, the desire to have a expanded area, 20,000 square feet, which would most likely put them outside of this building. So we'd likely have to acquire some land. And then one of the items at the bottom, number 21, Wadsworth Park, it was an item that came up last year with our board where we were looking at, there is a need to do something out there. There is some equipment in need of replacement. And then a conversation with people from the community had come forward. They actually appeared in front of the board to talk about, the possibility of revamping that facility to do something a little bit different. So I have that one broken out on a couple different slides just to give you an update since we're talking about capital projects and see if there's a desire to, maybe do something different there. So just let me know when you guys are ready to move to the next one.
Yeah, I think, right, part of what started the discussion of being more proactive on the on maintenance and getting caught up was one of the issues that the park had with some of the deteriorating structures that were there. So really this, asked Ms. Petito to bring this one back up because there's again, just a group of skaters out there that see a big plan for a expansion of the park, but the realities are the costs. So we've got the ability to replace half of those steel ramps and structures for a fraction of the cost of a new concrete park, whereas we could add this to the CIP as a potential on parks and recreation projects that where funding could become available. I don't know, what's out there for grants or other things, but again, there's a group of residents out at the beach that utilize the park frequently, and just when they were concerned that we make sure we prioritize the maintenance out there, which we did. I mean, staff was very reactive in getting the place back up and running. And we've added some maintenance staff to be able to address a lot of these deficiencies that had occurred in the past. But just for your information, the 250,000 was previously budgeted. They could have immediately started that replacement, but wanted to have a discussion on a more expansive park. Especially with some new commissioners on. But the availability of the 250 is still there to be able to do those improvements quickly.
Well, it was part of it wasn't intended for the skate park, if you recall. When we brought it to the board, maybe we'll just move forward to that one. Maybe I'll just start here unless you want me to talk about the funding. But as you know, the Wadsworth Skate Park, it's located in Flagler Beach. It was constructed back in 2000. It's just under 24,000 square feet of concrete slab. It is enclosed by a 6-foot-high chain link fence. What is out there now is a series of painted steel ramps and structures. Some of these ramps and structures have been repaired, and some of them have had to be removed. We currently did not replace that last one, as staff was asked to kind of put it on hold until we could bring this item back. The challenge that you have out there, because this is steel and it's in close proximity to the ocean, it rusts. We've replaced them several times. This is not the original equipment from 2000. I think we're on our third set of equipment, and some of those are in need of repair or replacement. Really not repair. We've repaired what we could. Some of them have gotten to the point of not being safe, so we've had to take them out. So in looking at it, that's kind of what exists on Google Earth. Here's kind of a better look probably at some of these ramps and structures. We've painted them over the years to try to prolong their life, and some of the panels we've been able to get parts for, but some of the equipment is old and they no longer make the parts for it. So we have replaced some of it. There was a structure that was removed last year. There were actually two that were in pretty bad shape. We were able to salvage one. One we had to pull out. So this is kind of what they look like. Again, they're steel. They're exposed to, salty air, which causes for rust. So in looking at it, you could replace half of what was the existing equipment that's out there at a cost. We have a quote provided by the American, I believe it's on there, the American Ramp Company, for about $250,000. That's what we had brought forward when the item came up last year. Was we had funding identified, and I think it was from other projects. So we had also at Wadsworth, I think it was like the realignment of some power. There was some pickleball courts that we were going to develop, and rather than develop them, we were able to go back and restripe. I think it was maybe the single tennis court at a cost savings. So it was kind of some of the savings on one project and a partial savings on another, that we do have funding available. I'd have to see where it exists and how much is left. So one option would be to replace the equipment with, again, steel equipment. It will rust over time. The thought, going back to the list of unfunded, was that if we ever got to a point of constructing a concrete skate park, that the equipment, if it is still in good condition, could be relocated out to hidden trails. So right now, out in Daytona North, you have a 10-acre park. We have an additional 10 acres of undeveloped property. So the parcel was 20 acres. We've only developed 10 for the park. There is ample room out there that you could set up a skate park if we were to, at some point, create a concrete skate park here. You could take the equipment out there and set it up where the steel probably has a better likelihood of surviving. And then these are the estimates for construction of a new concrete skate park. Just looking at the designs, about $24,000. And then the cost estimates for construction, they range anywhere from $55 to $70 per square foot. It starts getting on the $70 when you look at technical features. So if you have a lot of variations like bowls or areas that like you're dipping in, you're going to be up there to the $70 square foot. And then we had talked about adding a pump track, which would be an opportunity for some of the bicyclists that also use the skate park, maybe would, be moved over to a pump track. Not saying that bikes can't be in the skate park area, but sometimes it does create a challenge. We talked about adding a pump track in addition to the skate park. So if you were to look at constructing a skate park that would be to the same square footage of what you have today, it would range somewhere between the 1.3 to almost 1.7 million. And then adding the pump track, that would give you about another 350,000. So by adding in the design with the construction and the pump track, you're probably somewhere around $2 million. So that would be just to go with the size that you have today. previous discussions had talked about, do you end up doing something bigger? Do you make something that's like a regional destination, something that could attract larger events, skateboarding events? If you were to do that, you'd probably be doubling the price. So it might be like around $4 or $5 million for something much larger.
Do we have a count of how many people use that park? Do we have any idea?
I don't know that we have staff out there like actually counting participants, but it is used every day. It is heavily used, especially, around the holidays or in the summer months. But it is used during the week. I just think you have heavier use probably when there's no school.
The weekends?
And weekends, but I mean, it is heavily used. We had a group last year that came forward. I don't know if they talked about how many, and it's not just youth, it's not just kids.
Right.
There's young adults, even, older adults that do use it.
There used to be Skate USA. They had this big, it was a big place that was off of 95 years ago, and I think they did tremendous amount of business in the south, that you could see it off the high of 95, and it was always packed with people. And it's a nice opportunity for, visitors and tourists to come and skate if it was marketed a little bit differently. If we were to spend $2 million, I'd like to see us get a return on the money for that. And I don't know if they can use PVC. I just keep thinking about Johnny Knoxville going down them, and they all like to ride the ramps with the skates as well, which I'm sure is putting wear and tear on those steel beams as well. So I don't know if there's another replacement for it or not. Thank you.
These cost estimates were based on a quote that we had received from American Ramp Company. They are covered under Sourcewell contract, so you wouldn't have to necessarily go out and go through a different type of RFP process. This is what they're seeing as a cost. Just, did a search earlier today. There's a project, I want to say it might have been in Panama City, but I don't recall. I think it was Panama City. And it's now 2025 where they're building a 10,000 square foot facility at a cost of 1.4 million. But that was a company called New Line Skate Parks. So, I know several years ago, probably back in 2014, this issue came up. Again, the need to replace the equipment, and we had at that time talked to Team Payne. I think they were out of Orlando, Central Florida area. And the cost, it depends on if you're getting kind of like a designer skate park or you're getting a skate park. So costs do vary, when you add some of those design elements and details. And I think Team Payne at the time was looking at adding like artwork kind of type finishes where it definitely increased the cost of the project, so.
I mean, personally, I'd like to see us try and get some other equipment back out there, at least add this back into the current year, after, we spent a year doing analysis to get the skate park prices up. And I don't think it's bad investment. Like you said, if anything happens, we can move it to the west side. But, it would take consensus of us to make changes.
Well, as I mentioned, we do have a quote from this company. The cost is right around $250,000. And again, whatever the direction is from the board, if we can go back and look at those projects that were identified for Wadsworth, and if there is a savings available that could be applied here, if that's something the board would like to see, we could move it forward and then just bring back to you at another board meeting, probably in January or February.
Is this a feasible project? Do we have to do it all or nothing all at once? Can we phase it?
I'm not sure which project, to replace the equipment or to build a.
Well, to make it, to build it, to add the pump track, to get closer to the 2 million mark. Is it something you can phase?
I don't know how you would be able to, because you're going to have, whatever we do, you would end up doing it in the footprint that exists today. So you'd have to shut down what exists to then do the construction. The skate park naturally would go where the skate park exists, but the pump track would be constructed kind of next to it or adjoining to it. So you'd probably want to do them somewhat in tandem, because once you have a contractor out there, when you talk about mobilization of having to come out there, and then if it's two different projects, two different things, a lot of the subs are all going to be the same people. I don't know if there's going to be any economies of scale, like a savings or anything because of that.
Heidi, what's a pump track?
A pump track is, you'll see them in dirt or you'll see them like in concrete. So it's kind of, this is me describing it. It's kind of like if you skied, like snow skied, you know how like you have those moguls and you go up and down? It's kind of like that, but in, sometimes you'll see it in dirt, sometimes you'll see it like in mountain biking, they have them made out of dirt and they've got these berms and these different things. So once you get going, it'll keep you going so that you kind of just, keep going around. We can probably find a picture, probably would do better than my explanation, but
Well, I think I got it. I got it. But it takes up a lot of room, it sounds like, too.
it's not too big. So it's kind of just like a circle. So it's,
Yeah, okay,
yeah, it's not too bad.
got it.
Here we go. We're with some help from IT.
I
we
think
can
it uses
show you.
momentum.
It
Greg.
does, like
I
right
think
there.
it-
You'll see that one there.
There it
That's
is.
kind of a,
It's a momentum thing.
yeah, so once you
Keeps you
get going,
rolling.
then you keep going. And so, I mean, you can use it for skateboarding, you can use it, bikes, whatever. But that's why it would probably complement the skate park. I think this one's featured right next to it, so you'd see that connectivity. So,
Does a person who participates in this type of sport, do they prefer concrete over the steel ramp?
Oh, yeah.
yes, when we've been talking about this probably since 2014, and
That's not even a question. They
Yeah.
love it.
there are elements, though, that would still be metal. So like if you're going to try to, I forget what they call them, it's kind of like that grinding thing. It's a rail. So you'll see those that'll be metal, but they're,
It was part of that picture. They had the pump
Yes.
track and the,
yeah. So you can see like there are different elements of, I mean, this one's really a big pump track, but yeah. And you could build something like that. Now that might be in phases where if you go with replacing existing and adding a pump track, and then over time, if there was a need to expand it, you could expand it, but
It's right across the street, just like Wadsworth has.
yeah, more density over there for sure.
It might be a nice attraction, though, that would give us a little bit more.
Yeah, I'd like to see
Volume.
more information about what our options are before we spend the 250 to replace
Yeah.
current.
Maybe we
Just
can do
give
something really
staff
special.
direction. What do you want to see? Do you want a vendor to come present, or do you want,
That would be interesting, I think. It would give
And-
us an opportunity to
or Zoom a
explore what
designer?
options are available if we're going to improve the park.
so I think it's two different things. And so one would be to replace existing layout with new equipment for the stuff that's rusted down. That's the 250. That we may have money for right now that we could move forward. So that's where we were a year ago, and we're bringing it back now. So just so I understand, if we're going to either move forward with that and then repurpose this equipment at a later date if we did the concrete, because we don't have 2 million to build the concrete,
Right.
we may only have the 250 to replace existing.
So it's still going to take some time, even if you did a design and phased plan, it's going to take a few years if you commit to that. Whereas spending a little bit of money to replace some of the equipment that was removed at least could add some additional
I think it would restore some value to
Value,
it.
Right.
there you go.
Because
Which is transportable out to the west if
you
we need
could.
to.
Correct.
Okay.
And I know, not to put him on the spot, but I know that Mike in his department gets routine phone calls about, how long is it going to take to replace the equipment that we took out of there a year ago? So,
Well, in good faith, if we have it and if it's needed, then we should do it.
Right.
And then work towards a plan or future funding, if that's what we want that park to turn into.
Might be a future capital improvement.
Or can tourism do any type of research for us to see what an events draw might be? Like, if it would be a destination park or facility?
I can ask department head to take a look at it. I think I'm going back to 2014 because we've had this conversation for a number of years. When Team Payne came and they actually gave a presentation to the board, they talked about if you're creating a draw, like a regional draw, it would be a much larger facility than this.
All right.
So what we're looking at is, replacing the existing, which is just under 24,000 square feet. When they were here, they talked about even going into the woods to the east of the existing, and doubling the size, including a pump track, but having the kind of that pump track going through the woods and coming back out. So definitely more of a much larger venue that would have some additional support facilities with it to have
If
events
I
and
remember
things.
too, the group of residents that talked about expansion of it have done some research, so we could bring them back as well to they've looked at the surrounding areas and what's available within driving distance and can add some information as well. But after last year of analyzing and not getting new stuff in, I wanted to bring it back. I think we need to do something now. So I guess what do you want to give direction to Ms. Petito to do? You said do we want to add the 250 and then have some further discussion and bring some people in to talk about a phased approach, a design potentially?
It would be an option for us to at least be able to review it and have some thoughts to it and consider maybe, like I say, a long-term
Okay,
situation.
all right.
So just so I understand, I'll go back and look to make sure that we have whatever money we have left in the Wadsworth projects. Make sure that if we have sufficient, we have a quote. I can bring that back to the board for consideration, but in the meantime, work with tourism and the group that came before to put together a more formal or in-depth discussion as we work on the budget to possibly include it as part of our CIP development for next year. Did I understand that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure. Okay.
So is that it for this?
That is, if I can get the clicker to work. Okay, so that should be it for the capital project piece.
So let me open it up for public comment. And hopefully we have some public comment on this. So just come up, state your name into the mic and
Ron Long, 252 Auto Drive. I didn't see this on the transparency dashboard. Is this available?
Which
The
piece?
one that just went away.
that
Yeah,
was
the-
added for this workshop.
Yeah, this right here, not the policies but just all that y'all just went through, the capital improvements.
The presentation should be on our website. Typically, we don't put it out ahead of, so
Okay,
it
so
would
it'll be there eventually at some point.
It should be on there now, probably.
All right, cool.
Yep.
Yeah.
So go to the calendar and you'll be able to click on today's workshop and the agenda.
I tried that last night and it wouldn't pull up, but that makes sense.
Okay.
Normally, we put out the agenda and not all the backup for the workshops. A little bit different than the regular board meeting, but this should be out there. If not, I can get your information. I can send it to you.
Nothing to add on the
I mean, the only thing I would recommend, the group that y'all had that was involved with it last time, I know they dove really deep on it. It's fundraising, the community of skaters, it really is a deep community. My boys are now in their 30s, but they skated at Wadsworth every chance they could. I mean, they were constantly there. So I would say the group has got some way to help fundraising. I'm sure that that could be an option to meet the 2 million. And I wouldn't go the 4 million route. It doesn't need to be that big. It doesn't need to be that big.
All right, thank you. Appreciate the input. Anybody else for public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll bring it back. All right, item 3. Thank you all for your feedback.
All right, so the next portion is going to be defining the board's policies and priorities. It's essential for us to create kind of that focused, effective budget, being able to align the fiscal decisions with our strategic goals. That way, the board ensures that the resources are allocated to the programs and services that matter most to our community. This also provides the framework for evaluating some of the funding requests as they come forward, and then managing the expenditures and financial stability. So when we look at the creation of the budget, our focus has been in support of the strategic plan, considering the economic impacts, the financial feasibility, optimizing resources, and then being able to leverage the available sources of funding. We continue to be mindful of economic impacts that we face as we move forward every year with some degree of uncertainty, and ensuring that we are able to have some financial feasibility to be successful. So we're making sure that we optimize all of our resources, continuing to examine new cost savings, potential efficiencies. We take a hard look at all of our expenditures, including the health insurance, the employee health insurance, and some of the benefits that we provide. And then as good stewards of the taxpayers' money, we continue to save where we can. As a coastal community, we also want to make sure that we continue to strengthen our reserves and that we have effective financial planning. So this is kind of what we've put together based on what we've done in the past as kind of like the framework. But looking for, input and guidance as we work through this. If there's something that we need to change or work towards. And then here, I just wanted to open it up for discussion with the board to kind of outline some of the budget guidance as we move forward. This list is actually based on prior guidance from the board, which has helped us with keeping the millage flat or reduced. We've been making a big focus on some of those deferred maintenance items as well as increasing the reserves. Also, focusing on beach management, employee retention, recognition, and maintaining competitive compensation. And then really being able to kind of hold the line on some of those expenditures, not just the board, but our constitutionals. And then whatever capital projects we develop and bring forward for review, they end up getting approved based on necessity and whatever available funding we have. So that's kind of just like the list of what we've been developing our budgets. I don't know if there's some stuff that you would like us to consider today and kind of talk about it.
Well, let me prep, right? So for Commissioner Carney, Commissioner Richardson, in the past, during budgets, at least when I first came on the commission, there was the budget process was heavily administratively driven, and it got to where come August and September, where we should have everything worked out, and staff is just going through the motions of finalizing the budget, we would get commissioner recommendations at the last minute, which throws the process in turmoil. Staff has, at that time, where things should be settled, staff is now trying to catch up and present, because your time is not your friend at that point. So what we did last year and what seems to be working is giving some pretty solid guidance to staff, to administration on what our priorities are. So the more specific we can be, if we give the direction now, when the budget is worked out over the next few months, when we start to figure out what is going to cost us more and what's going to cost us less, um, administration is able to use our guidance to formulate that budget. So come June, if we can meet all those other budgetary constraints, but also comply with commissioners' requests, then the thought being we should be able to go sail right through to completion of the budget. And the goal is to try and eliminate last minute changes so that we put in all the work ahead of time. So in the past, we would say it says flat or reduced millage. Well, the goal was, we've had successive years of reduced millage, and the goal is, right, we're maxed out. The county government has a 10 mil max. So progressive reductions in millage, even no matter how small they are over time, when a recession or a downturn does come, and it will come, our only objective then as property values drop is to raise millage. So if you don't do this proactively when it comes time during a downturn or property values drop, then we're making drastic cuts because we've capped out. So part of this goal and the successive millage reductions is just as a preparation, is to gain more distance between us and 10 and the cap. I think there's other ways to gain some cushion in there that administration has talked about in the past that we can also go down. But obviously, beach management is now a big component of, especially this year. Now, once we get past this year, and if we're able to establish some of the funding streams that we're looking at, then the next year might not be as much on our general revenue as a drain. But this coming year, we kind of have it mapped out. There's a lot of things that we've already put into place in order to do beach management. So that's kind of the driver now, is the beach management plan for this fiscal year. Employee retention recognition is a huge issue in trying to keep our best and brightest working for us here. Employee migration is hard on the organization, trying to fill positions. And so we have to be competitive, even as we've seen with emergency first responders, the sheriff's office, the fire department. That is so competitive that surrounding counties and agencies are offering, high dollar bonuses to lure people away. And then if we're not competitive, we're trying to fill in those positions. Now, we do have a strategic advantage because of for the fire department with the fire academy and being able to, it's been successful in growing our own that want to stay in Flagler. But there's a lot of areas on employee retention to remain competitive that I think is a high priority too. A lot of it is the constitutionals, those budgets. They're working on those budgets. If we can give direction to the administrator to can give guidance to the constitutionals on what options, what flexibility they have, and then any capital projects that we deem are necessary for this coming year. But those are the kinds of discussions we should have now to be able to provide the guidance for administration to develop the budget that meets our recommendations. Anything to add, Commissioner Hanson? You've been here longer than me.
No, that was well said. Yeah, this is, I think we're focusing on beach management this year. And the goal there is to establish an ongoing plan so we don't have to deal with it every year.
Right.
So it's just ongoing. So one of the hardest things to deal with for me was go to these beach management conferences and find out we're the only county that didn't have a plan, didn't have a funding plan. The other counties around here, they just write a check when it's time for beach management. And that's where we should be. We should have that fund being developed so that we just write a check. When it comes time to execute, we can just do it. So, yep.
So is there, for this budget season, right, we still have a lot of unknowns, but can we continue with the past strategic plan of a 10th reduction and still meet some of these priorities? With the beach funding for this year, we've already allocated us, in order to meet our beach maintenance and then be able to work on, I think, at least from my perspective, employee compensation and retention is really important.
I agree with Andy on the retention. I met so much of the staff, and we have a wonderful, wonderful group of people working. And I'm very much aware of I don't want to say switching, I'll say switching, companies and and counties for a couple dollars more. It's going to cost us double that to train and get qualified people. So when you have the good people, you want to keep them. That's always a big thing in any business. It costs you money. So I'd rather try to get the savings now than pay the punishment later.
And the 10 typically works out to about 1.2 million, right?
Somewhere around 1.4, 1.5. I
It's
think
gone up.
we had, and I don't know, I mean, today's not the day that I need all the answers, so I was just going to kind of go over this. The next steps that we have, as far as the presentation, I don't have anything further as far as presentation, but typically, and what we've done in years past is now is when I kind of get you thinking of what do those policies, priorities look like. In between December and January, we'll have a series of one-on-ones where we'll make appointments for the commissioners to come in, meet with Jorge and myself to kind of fine tune that. It'll come back to the board collectively once we get everybody's input. I know this is a lot of information today all at once, so I don't expect a decision today, just so that you're thinking about what that looks like as far as what do you want to support, because it is important that we kind of establish that in the beginning of the budget creation so that we're not at the end trying to make last minute changes. So we will schedule some one-on-ones between now and our meeting in January to talk about board priorities. And then it'll come back on January 13th. We'll bring all of those ideas back as a board to talk about the policies and priorities, and then any changes that you want to see with the strategic plan. So those items will come back on January 13th for consideration and hopefully adoption. And then we actually officially kick off the budget on February 10th. So even though this is a budget workshop, we've had, I think this is maybe our second one that we've had so far with the new board, it's building up to the actual kickoff, which will take place in February 10th. And then the day after you kick it off, we meet with the constitutional. So it's important that we kind of, get that structure of expectation as we kick off and they start preparing their budget. So we have time, but that's kind of where we're at.
Well, got everybody thinking.
Yep.
And wanted to note, for the clerk, Commissioner Pennington is excused today. She's has some items to take care of, but I know she was listening in and will weigh in on this as well. So then those one-on-one meetings and then again in January. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take public comment on the budget priorities. Anybody wish to speak on budget priorities? Seeing none, we'll close public comment and bring it back for adjournment. All right, a motion to adjourn. Thank you very much. We'll see everybody back here at 5. Thank you.
Ooh, I can almost